Okay, so we are live. There we go. All right. Okay, welcome back to Oils Nocturnal Scenes at the Ocean County Artists Guild. That's where we are today. The address, website address is www.ocartistguild.org. We are located at 22 Chestnut Avenue in beautiful Island Heights, New Jersey, which is at the Jersey Shore, not far from Seaside Heights and Island Beach State Park. This program is brought to you in part by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, by a grant administered by the Ocean County Cultural and Heritage Commission. If you'd like to contact us, you can contact us via telephone at 732-270-3111, or you can email us at info@ocartistguild.org. If you'd like to have access to the materials for this class, and also to get more information about the class offerings at the Ocean County Artists Guild, please visit www.ocartistguild.org/classes. And that's where you can find information about all of our classes. We have watercolor. This one is oils. We also have acrylics classes and social painting events and family and kids classes as well. So back to our class. Oh, we don't need to see me. There we go. Okay, so the way we left off is this is the fourth class in a series of 6. And so far what we've done, just to give you a recap of where we've been, if you want to see, how we progress to this point, you can catch some of our previous live streams in the session. But here we decided on a composition. We used the rule of thirds, to help us with the layout of our composition. The photo was already cropped in a pleasing way, so we didn't have to crop first. From that, we did a value study, which was just the thumbnail on an index card in the same proportion as our reference. You can see we have a rule of thirds grid there. And here, the purpose of the thumbnail was just to map out the major shapes of the 3 main values, which were white, gray, and black. So from here, we went from here to a toned canvas where we wiped out the rule of thirds. It's partially, it's been painted over, so it might be hard to see, but you can still see evidence there. Toned the canvas first. We wiped out some of the lights. Well, first we sketched with paint, and then we wiped out some of the lights. We added our grisaille, and now we're at the point of we're adding our darkest dark. And in order to get the mix of the darkest dark, we were using a combination of dark cyan and ultramarine blue. So, these containers are white. I'm going to go over and get some. Darkest dark over there. So before we So I'm going to mix my black by taking some dark cyan with the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to get a nice dark black value. Now, to make it cooler and darker in value, you know, you can add more of the ultramarine blue. To make it warmer, you can add more burnt sienna, or so you can use burnt umber. But I do like I kind of prefer the transparency of the burnt sienna. The burnt umber is really opaque, and I don't like to get really opaque in the under layers of my painting just yet. Because really, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to mapping out the values on the canvas in the same way that I did with my values in the thumbnail. So I think I want to get, I'm going to take a nice brush here. I think I'm going to take this flat and I'm going to go in here and establish my blacks because I don't have any blacks there. So I'm just going to take some mineral spirits to thin it out. And now I can get in. There's some really nice deep shadows in here that I don't want to forget to put in. I think I'm going to add a little bit more of that, of the ultramarine blue to make that darker. And here I can see there's a bit of a perspective line there. And oh, this here. I might have to wipe out a little bit in there to get that just right, but that's okay. Get this shape in here. So I'm going to generalize. I can always add the other. There are some subtle value changes in here, but right now I'm just going to put this right here. And straighten that out a bit. Always make these corrections later, but since I see it, I can easily wipe it off with a wet oil paint. Losing my voice here. These kind of, it's almost like beveled, kind of angles in. Okay. Then I have another piece there. And let's see, all underneath, let's say, so I got that here, over here, and let's say this shape here. So I'm really just trying to focus on the shapes that I see in here because it can be a little tricky. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. And I got that, you know, those spinning doors. It's got some interesting shapes there. So I'm gonna pretty much go for an impression. Let's see. There. And take some solvent and wipe out a detail over here. It's actually pretty dark up there. So I can wipe this out. That's a little bit lighter. There's like a reflection. It's catching over here. All right. There's an occlusion shadow. Well, I'm calling it an occlusion shadow, but it might not actually be an occlusion shadow. Let's say there's like a little dark area there, and there's a dark shadow over there. Kind of goes like that in that doorway. And let's see. And there's another door here. I see some other shape here. There's a dark shape there, kind of like a rectangle, and it's going in this direction. That there, but then I have this over here. So what I'm doing is kind of like negative painting out some of the frame area here to firm up that door. Let's see. What I'm thinking is that especially towards the bottom of that frame, you know what? This needs to be the frame of this. See, I made that. This needs to be smaller. Ah, there we go. Every mark is a correction, right? That. There's another square over here. I'm going to get the impression of, and then a little shape here. Let's see. So I'm looking at these trapezoids and things that are in that doorway. Oh, and I see a brighter spot. Okay, so there's some lines. Let's see if I could scrape in. See if I can do that. Or sometimes when I use an index cardboard, it absorbs some of the paint. So I have let's do this trick here. It's not going to get real bright, but there we go. Get this in the card. So I scratch that in. That looks cool. But let's see. Here, I'm going to scumble in some of it, somewhat of a shadow in here. This is darker in value over here. That side, sure. I still want to wipe out something. Let's see. Oh, I need to wipe out over here. Scrape that out. Scrape that. There's this over here. Okay. So that's looking better. Okay, so this here has shadows. So I'm going to put those in, especially on this side, because it recedes, right? It's curved, so I want to make sure that I get the impression, the right impression there. So this is all is not as light as one might think. There's a little bit of more light there. The rest of this is pretty dark. Make that recede. Okay, now that definitely has more more dimension. Put this back in there. Need to get really like darker in there. It needs a darker shape. Needs a darker shape. Dark, dark, dark. Oh. And let's see, I see things over here that I can scratch out if possible. Let's see. I may have to get some thin brush to get some of that, wipe some of that out. So it's not always about what you put on. Sometimes it's about what you take off. Let's see. And here, this is really dark, except for that thin line. And there's another there. inside of this frame has a shadow on it. That out. Here, line under there. This is dark over here. And I'm ignoring the actual text. That's over there. Oh, there's another impression over there. Works in there. Stumble that a little bit, make that a little bit darker, because it has to receive more. Okay, I think that's close. This has to be blended a little bit more, I think, too. So that's not straight. It's got to be straight. Let's take that back again, and we'll straighten it out. He's getting a phone call. Not me. This time it's not me. You can also use a credit card to scratch out. This is getting better as we speak. All right. Okay, so I think that's probably pretty close to where I want to be, so I'm just going to leave that. Let me just do double check and make sure I need any more dark shadows. These doors are that, this, and that's there. All right, that's good. Right. I'll throw in some dark figures are. A little bit of pattern here on the walkway. Just block that in a little bit. Oh, fire hydrant over here. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I got to put those in. I got to put all those colors over there. All right. Okay. So now I'm pretty much done with my underpainting and establishing, most of my values. Let's see. Actually, I'm looking here, and this could be dark. So what I might do is, let's see, I might go ahead and stumble in some darker values here. And that's going to help set off my sign if that's all a little bit darker. So I'm kind of just taking some of that diluted dark and just kind of glazing it over top to make it darker. See, it's a little bit brighter there, but probably not quite that bright. So I'll glaze a little bit there. The sign, see, now the sign is starting to stand out. It seems to be significantly a little bit darker up here. So I'm going to go ahead and darken all this. that's above the sign there. And again, I think that's what it needs for that sign to pop. So you can see what I see. I'm just glazing a little bit, and it's giving it just enough dark. To make the building itself recede. Oh, and you know what? There's a shadow here that I kind of forgot that goes from here to here, so I can scumble that in. And when I say scumble, I'm using like the side of the brush. I'm holding the brush like this, and I'm using the side of the brush to, tint my canvas. And over here, you see from the bottom here up, it's darker too. So there is some molding on the building that's a bit later, but I would say this is kind of, oh, I need that to recede some too. So I'm just making it slightly darker in value, but still keeping my paints transparent. Oh, I love that shadow. That shadow looks good. That's much better. Much better. Let's get that to recede a little. And of course, oh, here, forgot the bottom of my canvas. See, forgot the street. The street's pretty dark, and there's a shadow area for the curbing that I need to put in as well. So that should complete the picture. Sometimes when you think you're done, you're not. I like to get it to a point where, except for like really, really fine details, it pretty much can pass as almost like a finished painting when you're at this stage, but except it's, sepia tone. But I love the look of it. Now I could have done that darker too. I might go in there and scumble that a little bit, um, because then that'll bring those lights out even more. But right now I'm gonna get this curb in. It's a nice. It'll help frame that out. It's a nice diagonal to have. And having the bottom of the canvas be darker also helps us, you know, emphasizing the lights as our focal point. There's a little bit of a bevel edge. It looks like on top of that curve, but I'll put that in. That's a detail I'll save for later. Mainly, I don't want to forget the shadow, and no matter what color I put on top of it, it'll add that richness to it. It'll keep it nice and rich and deep. Okay, so that really adds. It needed that. And I think my sidewalk needs a little bit, especially it's darker on that side than it is over here. See where the lights are, but over here it's a little bit darker. So here, my fire hydrant's kind of dark. I made that a little bit too dark. All right, so I know, see, this is deeper in value, so I need to make sure that I make that reference there because we don't want, oh, and the cones. These cones are tones aren't even really important. I could have probably left them out, but I can't. I think it makes an interesting bunch of shapes there. So to add, so I think I'll just keep that. And then right underneath the overhang here, well, there's lights, but I would say it looks kind of dark over here, so I'm gonna put some of that in, at least up next, right next to the building here. Let's just add a little bit more shading here. So that'll create more of a vignette effect. Okay. All right, so this I'm liking better. Oh, and this is a beveled edge, so this kind of recedes, so I'll put that in, and that'll add a little extra something that it needs. Okay. Not too bad. Now, there's some, details in the building, but I'm going to leave them out for now. I can always add those later. And I'm going to take my smaller brush, and I'm going to go into that sign and make those values darker, so that my lights pop a little bit more, see? Now, I don't want it to be really opaque around those lights. So here we go. Try to keep it loose. I think that, by, keeping a loose grip on the brush, especially around those lights, it helps uh, activate the lights more. You know, if you're being a little bit more, adding a little bit more movement there, that the lights will your lights will appear to have more of a flicker than if you draw a really hard circle around those lights, because that's the lights at night are the star of the show. So we want to show pretty much that they could be dancing in a way. They're not. When you think of Starry Night and Van Gogh, how everything was so activated, he had spirals and all that, and I'm not necessarily saying to do that, but just to make you think of the fact that because of the energy of those brush strokes, he really made the night sky and the lights of the night sky come alive. So our goal here is to not suck the life out of the lights. What we're doing here is we're trying to emphasize them as the star of this show. So up here, this is darker, definitely darker. Yep, I definitely think that this is going to help bring out some of these lights. It takes a little bit of time to negative paint around small things like this, but I think it gives big bang for the buck with this particular subject. You put the effort where it's going to have the most impact. All right, now I feel like this has even more of a glow. So it's time to take a picture of it at this stage. But ooh, here, Found another place where I want to. Nice. Anybody hear what that was saying? I can't. I could not hear that. Okay. All right. Excited to see where this is headed. Taking a pic. And now, you know what? While I'm at it, when you are photographing your work, let me move this over. This little tip. Okay, using your camera app, what you want to do, and you could see this through my viewfinder. What I try to do is I'm using a 3:4 ratio, not using a flash because it's well lit, and I'm cropping in so that there's no background. Okay, that's what you want when you're doing a shot. Okay, so it snapped that picture, so that's good. It's going to be nice and cropped in, and that's the way our progress. I do all my progress shots like that when I'm using my cell phone camera. So we're going to go around. I'm going to take a, sorry. All right, going to go around with the webcam. Let's see. Oh, nope. Nope, that's not it. Wait. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, here we got the photo reference value study, and we have our completed underpainting. All ready to go. I should take a picture of all that stuff together. Let's take a look. Woo-hoo. We have some colors going on here. Nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Too red.
Probably, if you look at your reference, I'm thinking maybe it's a little bit more purple.
Okay.
And you could add a little bit of yellow to it to tone that down and neutralize it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Ooh, okay. We working on our dorks. We got a lot of good stuff going on here, Barry. That's looking good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Yep, nice details. We have Kim here. Oh, look at how beautiful that's looking. Oh, it's starting to glow. That sky has got a nice glow in it.
Okay, good.
Can't wait to see what happens with those cars when you get to those too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far, oh, I just love the way that's coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Let's see.
Really good.
All right. Ooh, this is coming along great. Okay. Okay, so when we go to glaze our color, I see some of you have your oil out, and that's good. It's like the ratio is 1/3 stand oil or linseed oil to 2 parts mineral spirits. Mm-hmm. Now I have some jars up there, and I also have, you know, the bowls here. Let's take a walk over here. What I have. We have some stand oil. We have some terpenoid. I do have some of these small mason jars here. There is a spoon here, you know, to help you measure out some of your ratios.
You could store your leftover medium in there for use for the next couple of classes so that we don't waste it. And that would be great. So, okay, so I think that, I mean, some of you have already started with your color. For those of us, hold on, I'm going to switch back. And let's see.
All right. Okay. So what I'd like to do first is take a picture. You might see my camera here. Oh, no, you can't, but that's okay. I'm going to take a picture of all how I ended up here. There we go. Good. Okay. All right. So, let's see if I could switch over to my studio mode for a minute. And let's see if it's not going to load. Oh, okay. Here we go. Let's take that. Color theory presentation. Okay. So now you know what? I need to bring my reference up first. Let's do that first. Okay. Add a source here. Add another image. No. I have to download this image. I don't know if I have it. Hold on. Let's see. Let me see. Do I have my nocturnal images? Oh, yes, I do. I have my nocturnal image already in the folder. Wonderful. Okay. All right. So let's go back here. I'm going to add an image. Add that image. Nocturnal. Okay. Browse. Find it. Okay. Okay. Right. And get all my other stuff out of the way. So that we can see colors. Okay. I may have to make that a little smaller. I'm adjusting the photograph here for us. All right. There we go. Okay, so I have my palette, my reference. Okay, so I'm going to transition over, get out of studio mode. Okay, so now you see um, up in the the left hand side, I have my reference photo and I have my obviously my underpainting, and you can see my palette, and I have my mineral spirits. I'll put that up here, and I have what's called medium, and the medium is right there. It's a third part, 1 part stand oil or linseed oil to 2 parts linseed, to 2 parts mineral spirits, or I use odorless mineral spirits. I have terpenoid. There are other brands of mineral spirits out there. There's also pre-made medium that you can buy already made for you. Uh, I, like the option of having to mix my own so that you can control the consistency. All right. I have my couple of brushes and my palette knife here. Okay. So first though, let's see. I'm going to make this bigger. Let me make this photo bigger so that we could see it better. Okay. Um, let's see. So go to Logitech here. And go ahead and open this on my desktop too, so that our students here in class can see it better and bigger. All right. So I can talk to it. Alrighty. So let's just talk about what we observe first. Okay, so I would say that the color palette here is pretty primary for this particular picture. I see, reds, yellows, and blues, and, some combinations of it. So for a beginner, this is a pretty good, uh, it's a pretty good option to start with for a reference because for that reason. Now, there are some things that we need to know. Like there are some reds that have more, that are more violet. I see some yellows here that might be a little bit on the cool side, maybe reflect some more green. There's orange, okay, but it's going to be dull because it's going to be in shadow. So, so, so we're going to have to pick yellow, a red, and a blue along with white, and I guess we could use black, or we could still use the same combination of ultramarine blue with burnt sienna for our black, and we can use that and mix our colors with that. But you see up here there's a lot of blue in the shadows, and then it gets slightly warmer over here, like it's like a warmer, deeper gray. There's a lighted sign here that has some blues in it. This is a really, really dark shadow. What's nice about looking at, see, I'm using, one of the pitfalls of using a printed photo as opposed to looking at this picture on the screen is that a printed photo is going to have a lot more color information lost. So this is really a preferred way of looking at a photograph, other than, of course, life being the best. So if I had to look at the major colors, we have browns here, and the browns, any browns or grays that we see in the picture, we can mix from the primaries that we decide we're going to use. This way, whatever browns or grays we use are going to be harmonious with with our color palette, instead of using something straight out of a tube. What we like to do is we like to work with a limited palette. And a primary palette is an example of a limited palette, even though you can get just out of like 3 colors that you pick, you can get a full range of color. Now, for some of us, we have some of you might have more limited choice. Like for the moonscape, you might pick 2 colors, maybe complementary colors, and focus on those. Um, go around and take a look at what other choices have been made so far. So I see some yellows in here, even on the sidewalk. Um, Really, really interesting. Over on the left-hand side of the Broadway sign where you have that crescent shape on the side of the building, there's this bright spot, but it has like a bluish, it could have a bluish cast to it. Under here, this might have, compared to here, it might be underneath the sign. Right underneath, you see more yellow, but then over to the left, we see more violet in the light. So look at what colors you see reflected in your darks and in your lights, in your darks too, and in your grays. Like, because like I said before, like we have some browns in what reads as gray. We have some blues, we have some violets. So, you know, take a look at your reference. Now, the lights in the around in the paramount, in the word paramount, and then all the lights that border around that and border around the 1501 Broadway and underneath the overhang, they all have a yellowish cast to them. But if you look at the 1501 Broadway, this digital sign that's being framed, it's very white. There's a lot of cool whites in there that are not yellow. There's some yellow, but then there's a lot. I see there's some pinks and as well. And the 1501 Broadway itself is very very. It's definitely more white. Um, it might have a slight yellow to it, but it's for the most part pretty cool looking. Okay. So we're looking at the temperature of the color, the hue, and we're also looking at value. So what's nice though is that we've already established our values here in our underpainting. So now it's just a matter of, mixing the color of that particular value. But you need to make sure that color is the same value. And well, I'll demonstrate, how I would address that. But basically, you'd mix a color, and if you take your palette knife and you put a little splotch of color in that area, if you squint your eyes, it should disappear. It should kind of visually disappear. That's how you know it's the right value. Is if you put a color on top of this value of where your painting is, and if you squint and it disappears, then you know you got the value pretty much right. And that's really the most important thing. You can use whatever color you could pick whatever color scheme you want. As long as the values are right, you're pretty much good. That's value is king. So I have a array of colors. Let's see what I'm gonna put out for this. Ooh, I know I want yellow, but I'm thinking that I'm gonna need. So primary palette. So my yellow, light. And let's see. Might take, because it's a common color, for my red, I might go with some alizarin crimson. Now I already have some ultramarine blue out here, so I may just stick with that, or I think I might go back to using a little bit of, I may use a little bit of cerulean because I see some brighter blues, or I could use, go to So you got I think that what we would start with is we're going to block in. We're going to do the later. We're going to do the lightest color first. Well, you could do the red door though in yours. Um, yeah, there's different theories. Do what color would be your focal point? In your case, would be the red door, and that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the painting. So that's a good approach. Um, so if I went to, like some of the lighter areas, like say I went to maybe not necessarily the white of the sign uh, here, but not necessarily the white, but what's around the white. Because if that's the brightest, I kind of want to reserve that. So to put in, I guess, our lighter lights, and I would say on this one, I would put this part in here so that I'd have something to compare it to because it's not quite as bright. I would leave if anything that reads like a really bright white, I would probably not put that on right away. I think you want to put on your most saturated colors, your most, uh, the lights that have a little more pigment in them. Because if you start putting white on your canvas, it's going to make everything else look a little chalky. Um, but what I do want to do first is I want to um, just give you a quick uh, overview of color theory if you haven't had it. I have a presentation um, that okay. I have this quick color theory presentation um, that'll uh, help us decide, what colors we should use or decide on a color scheme if we haven't chosen one already. Now, I kind of picked out and said that mine was a primary color scheme, but again, others might feel different. Now, a primary color scheme is an example of, okay, so there's yellow, blue, and there's red. That's the traditional color wheel. And then we have, those are the primary colors. And then we have the tertiary, the secondary colors, and then the tertiary colors. Okay, here. The primary is red, yellow, blue. Secondary is orange, violet, and green. Tertiary is yellow, orange, red, violet, blue, green, and yellow, green. So you see how that works. And the traditional color wheel is if there were pure primaries and the world of pigments was a perfect world, which it isn't. There are no pure primaries in the world of pigments and paints. So, but before we go on to explain the intricacies of pigments, we should talk about the different color schemes. So we have the primary colors, which are red, yellow, blue. Again, secondary colors orange, green, and purple, and complementaries are any two colors that are opposite one another on the color wheel. So in the next slide, I have examples from art history that show the examples of those particular color schemes at play. Mondrian did, the gridded squares, black and white he did primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. For your secondary colors, we have orange, violet, and green. I have Vincent van Gogh's irises, and you can see how pleasing that is. And Monet's sunset here is complementary. It's blue and orange, two colors that are opposite one another on the color wheel. So that's the primary focus of that. So we have more color schemes to pick from. Analogous it's an example of color harmony, but with 3 to 5 hues that are next to each other on the color wheel. So in this example, it could be any 3 to 5. Now here in this example, what they have mapped is they have green, blue, and blue. And then an example of a warm versus cool is warm colors, reds, oranges, and yellows. Your cool colors are greens, blues, and violets. So when we talk about, in general, warm versus cool, your warm colors are your reds, oranges, and yellows, and your cool colors are typically greens, blues, and violets. So that gets a little bit confusing when we talk about pigments and the fact that there are warms and cools of each primary, even though each primary is primarily warm or cool. So, but the most important thing is to know what other color that primary reflects. So we'll go over that. And then a triad is any 3 colors that are equidistant on the color wheel. So red, yellow, and blue are equidistant, but you can go around the whole color wheel with all the different triads that you can pick. In this example, it's red, orange, blue, violet, and yellow, green is the triad that you see here. So the triad is an example of a contrasting color scheme, just like the opposites on the color wheel. That's also a complementary color scheme is also a contrasting color scheme. So here's some examples from art history to demonstrate that. The analogous color scheme here with the sunflowers, and I picked 2 different works here. One is obviously warm. It's the Red Cana by Georgia O'Keeffe, and then we have the Old Guitarist, which is in blues. Very cool colors by Pablo Picasso. And then we have this triad, which is pretty much a primary color scheme, right? Similar to, or my sample at hand here, that's also would be considered a triad because this particular one is red, yellow, and blue. Now, finally, in our list of color schemes, we have what's called a split complementary and a double split complementary, and also monochromatic. Split complementary has both harmony and contrast because you're picking 2 colors that are opposite the color wheel. You're picking one as the key color. In this case, the opposites are yellow and violet. So we're going to pick the yellow, but then opposite the yellow, instead of picking the violet, we're going to pick red, violet, and blue, violet. So we're splitting the complement on the opposite side of the yellow. Okay. In the example of a double split complement, we take both of the complementary colors, but instead of any of them being a choice, we pick the colors on either side of both of the complements. So for the yellow, we're picking yellow, orange, and yellow, green, and for the violet, we're picking red, violet, and blue, violet for our color scheme. And then, of course, monochromatic, it could either be tints or shades. In this example, there are tints. You pick one color, and it fades from that color to white, okay? But you can also have shades. Instead of white, you can pick black if it's a color that reads really light in value, and that's also could be considered monochromatic. except that it's a shade. In this example, they're showing you tints. It's a single color in a range of hues. Tints, which can be tints, tones, or shades. So our underpainting is considered a monochromatic color scheme because it has tone. Okay, that would be an example of a tone. All right, so for examples of, okay, so we have the split complement here. We have the Mermaid, the Milkmaid by Vermeer, not the Mermaid. We have Claude Monet's House of Parliament, uh, Sun Breaking Through Fog for our double split complement. And then I have Nude Descending a Staircase by Marcel Duchamp to show you a monochromatic color scheme. This has both tints and shades in it, but it's monochromatic. Picking one color and we're either lightening with white or we're darkening it with black. So what are the benefits of learning about color schemes? Well, they inspire us to try new and different color combinations. They help us to create the emotion, energy, or mood we would like our painting to convey, and it inspires us to choose a limited palette that will help us to achieve color harmony in our compositions. Also, it helps us, you can learn more about famous historical works of art that demonstrate effective use of color schemes by visiting this link. I have a link to the Draw Paint Academy. And our next part is how to put that color theory into practice. So here I give you the color, what's called the color bias wheel that represents the reality of pigments. And you see in this color wheel, you see there's no pure red, there's no pure yellow, and there's no pure blue. There are no pure primaries in this particular color wheel, okay? Because there are no pure primaries in the world of pigments. That's why the primary colors are left blank. And what we say are pigments lean. So for example, reds lean orange or violet. Blue can lean to green or to violet, and yellow can lean orange or to green. And understanding that can help us more effectively mix our colors. There's a pigment color wheel that was created by Bruce McAvoy, and it arranges actual paint pigments and names of paint pigments, which is indicated by the P number that you'll see on a tube of paint. And he actually arranged them around the color wheel. So you see how crazy that is. They're all different spots on the color wheel because, again, a lot of tube colors are not pure pigments. Anyway, they're not even made with one particular pigment. Sometimes they're a combination of pigments. And this crazy wheel here demonstrates the fact that, okay, there could be more than one pigment in a pre-mixed tube of paint. Why that's useful to know is that it actually shows you that if you can get a collection of paints that are made with one P number, you can often mix a lot of these other colors that come pre-mixed in a tube. So you don't have to break the bank. All you really need are warms and cools of each primary color, plus a few extra colors in black and white, and you'll be able to mix a full range of colors out of that without having to buy all this pre-mixed stuff. Once you understand pigments and the nature of pigments, it opens your world up to all of these possibilities that you might not have seen before. So what I recommend you do, and this is for when you have your own pigments to work with, is to create your own two-color mixing chart. It's where you take all the paints in your box and you mix them with one another to see how your paints mix with each other and get an accurate reflection of what you have in your box. Because two different brands of paint can have the same P number, but if they're student grade as opposed to artist grade, or sometimes there's variations between two professional grades of pigments. They don't necessarily reflect the same colors, and it affects your mixture. So in order for you to be able to predict exactly how your colors that you have are going to mix, you need to make your own chart, color mixing chart based on those paints, and not a pre-made chart. Okay, that's good. That's going to be, this chart here is going to be your best indicator of how to mix the paints that you have to get the colors that you want. So I often during my when I have longer classes, or I've had color theory classes, we actually focus on this. We actually do this color chart. So um, what I can do is I can give you a copy of this so that you can have it and work on your own. So I've also done it with acrylics. You could do it with any paint medium, any medium at all. You can make your own color chart with in this way. So I've done it with acrylics. I've done it now with oils. Do it with watercolor if you work with watercolors. Now, Richard Schmid, who wrote Alla Prima 2, which is one of the books on my recommendation list, he actually passed away in the last year. He was one of the modern masters of painting. He wrote this book, Alla Prima 2, which I consider to be like one of the Bibles of painting. And he says, I know this simple fact: when painting from life, all I have to do is correctly identify a color I see in my subject as a specific pigment or mixture of pigments, and then put it on my canvas in the right place. If only, right? Nothing more. See it right, mix what I see right, and then stick it where it belongs. And that's what he says. And the more you paint and the more you observe nature, you will start to find yourself looking at a beautiful sunset and saying, "Oh, what colors? What colors can I mix together to get that beautiful sunset?" The more you paint and the more you become familiar by mixing colors and doing, you will, you'll start, you'll look at the world through the eyes of a painter, and want to try to predict, and that's really the best way to approach it. But I also say, just remember though, it's okay to paint the colors you feel instead too, and that's the beauty of knowing about the theory. In addition to the pigment, is that you can use what you know about theory and about color theory and about color schemes to create something that has even more impact. And you can also exaggerate the colors that you see based on the way you felt about the particular subject you're painting. So there's other physical properties of paint: transparent versus opaque. A lot of your transparent, like burnt sienna is transparent. Your phthalo colors are transparent. Quinacridone colors are transparent. Sap green, I think, is one of those colors that's transparent. Burnt sienna is transparent. Some your opaque colors, obviously, like your titanium white is pretty opaque. The ivory black is opaque. The cadmium colors are mostly opaque. Your cadmium yellows, cadmium reds, cadmium orange. Most of those are all opaque. Burnt umber is opaque. Cerulean blue is opaque. And yellow ochre is opaque. But if you don't know and you're not sure, uh, it'll say it on the tube of paint. Like this one is a Gamblin oil color, it's phthalo blue. Right on the back of the tube, it says transparent. Let's see. And then I have a different brand here, raw sienna. This one doesn't say. This one doesn't say on the Winsor and Newton. It does give you the permanence. It gives you the P number. but it doesn't tell me. Someone else on it too? No, it doesn't. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so let's see. What else do I have? Oh, I have this M gram. I have this M gram cerulean blue, and it says opaque. You know what? I'm going to pull these paints out in a minute, but I just wanted to just explain that really quick with some of the colors I had in the box here. A purity, one pure pigment versus combos. Look at the P number. Is there more than one? If there's more than one P number on the back of your on your tube, that means it's possibly a color that you can mix. Now, if it's a color that you use a lot of and you would rather have it pre-mixed, then money, okay? And there's also some pigments are chemically derived and others are earthen. Like, let's say, like some of your blacks, uh, ochres, like those would be like earthen type of pigments. Chemically derived, I would say like probably your quinacridone colors are more chemically derived. Um, yeah. Not that that's that important to know, but just so you do know. Color notes, more color notes here. Hue, local color. Color references used in ordinary conversation. When you say red roses or it's a red apple, that's what that term means when you're talking about hue or local color of an object. Um, the sky is blue, the water is blue, that kind of thing. Relativity is when a color appears different under different circumstances. Like the same color might look like a different color if it's surrounded by a different color. Okay. Uh, or according to the color of the ambient light illuminating a subject. That can also change the way a color appears. Saturation refers to um, how um, I guess how pure it is out of the tube. Okay, like it's the bluest blue that you can have, or the reddest red. Now, to desaturate a color, you can desaturate any color by mixing it with other colors. You desaturate it the most by mixing it with the opposite color on the color wheel. So you neutralize a red by mixing it with green. You brown out or gray out an orange by mixing it with blue, much in the same way we did the sepia tone underpainting. Okay, what we did was we mixed a dark orange, the burnt sienna, with a blue. That's an example of desaturating a color. Intensity is okay, pure pigments out of a tube. It's it's the brightest it's going to be. Tinting strength is the ability of a pigment to change the hue of white or another pigment. So there are some colors that in order to tint white or tint or change another color, you only need a little bit of it. Reds are an example of a color that has a really high tinting strength. Like your quinacridone colors, they have really high tinting strength to them. You only need a little bit of those, whereas you might need like a lot more yellow ochre in order to, change or tint a white. With some and your phthalo blue, you need just a tiny bit of that to create a tint, just a teeny tiny bit. You have to be careful. Know that some colors have more tinting strength than others, because that's going to affect uh, how how you decide how much of that pigment to mix with another color. If you know it's one of those colors like the phthalo blue that's going to take over, then I just need a little bit of it. Or if it's a red, I just want to mix a little bit of it in first, and just a tiny bit at a time until I get, because then that saves you uh, that saves you on paint, wasting paint. Because if you go ahead in and you say, oh well, you got used to mixing these other two colors together, and it looks like you needed equal parts of each, but then you pick a color with a high tinting strength like phthalo blue, and it's like all of a sudden, oh my God, I put equal parts in. You're never gonna change that back. You have to add the colors like that a little bit at a time. Color families. You know, that's your, we talked about those primary, secondary, tertiary, and then we have the color schemes. Color temperature, warm versus cool. Reds, yellows, oranges are your warms. Blues, greens, violets are your cools. Value and tone, light, medium, dark. That's what we're talking about. Lights, grays, blacks, and colors that read. So then I have a section which we won't go over about how to create your own two-color chart. Oh, but what I do like to do is take, let's go back to, escape out of this. Oh, I could just leave this picture, that's fine. All right, I'm going back. I love this picture because I took some of the basic colors, arranged them around the color wheel. So, you know, you have like your yellow ochre and cadmium yellow are the yellows that reflect orange. Your cad yellow light and the Hansa yellows and Naples yellows, those reflect green. Okay. And then with your reds and your reds, like your cadmium reds, those are your warmer reds because they reflect orange. Alizarin crimson, permanent rose, any of the quinacridone reds, those reflect more violet. Okay. And then with our blues, we have cerulean blue and the phthalo blues, they reflect more green. So they're more on that side going towards the yellow. And then we have your blues that reflect more violet, like your ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, they reflect more violet. So why is this important to know? Well, if I want the brightest orange, okay, I'm going to make sure that I mix a yellow that reflects orange plus a red that reflects orange, and that's going to give me a brilliant orange that I want for that. If I'm going to paint a daylily, if I'm going to paint a sunflower, and I want that really nice, warm, sunny yellow, well, I'm going to pick a yellow that reflects orange. I mean, there might be some lights and highlights that might have the yellow that reflects more green. But if I want a sunny yellow, I got to pick the yellow that reflects orange rather than green. Um, the blues, with the blues. If I want to mix a purple, if I want to pick a blue and a red to mix purple, I want to pick the red that reflects more violet and the blue that reflects more violet. That's going to give me the most brilliant purple. Okay, because they both reflect violet. If I want to mix turquoise, a color that's more turquoise, like a blue and a yellow, or if I want to mix a really bright spring green, I want to pick a blue that reflects green and a yellow that reflects green. And that's going to give me the most brilliant green. Most of the time, I kind of want my greens to be a little bit duller. Like there's only really the only time you have a brilliant green like that is, you know, the grass on a hot summer day that's in brilliant sunlight and it almost looks chartreuse. That would be an example of, like, you know, needing a really, really bright yellow green. But especially now, even looking at out the window at this holly tree, the green is it's a deep green, so it has definitely um, it's going to have a touch of red in it. You're going to need that touch of red in it to bring that, uh, to tone that, the brightness of the green down and give it a richer, give yourself a richer green. So those are just some examples. And I have my extra colors here that I like to have. Yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and black and white. If you, just like this picture, if you have just these colors and those extra colors, that's really all you need. Now this shows acrylics, but it doesn't matter. Oh, and I also put in this presentation, you know, which ones are warm and which ones are cool. Not that it matters. And this is basically how you create your own color mixing chart. Two color mixing chart. You list all the colors on top, Then along the side, include swatches, and then it's like times tables. You know, I mix, you avoid this because you're just mixing same with same. Okay. So then it's like, okay, so in this example, I have this blue, which is cerulean blue and cadmium yellow. And then mix those two together. Where they intersect is where that green is. And you just keep doing that for all your colors, and you have a basic 2-color mixing chart that you can use as a jumping point in order to be able to mix your colors. All right. Now, you can do a color study with a thumbnail. You could do it on a postcard. This is like an example of a color study. For this class, because we're working, pretty much uh, with a nocturnal scene, um, because there's so many darks in there. We don't have to be. Uh, it's a lot easier to pick colors and mix the colors that we would need. So we don't have to get that far in depth. But just know that this could be part of your process. This is an example of an oils interior where, I started with some of the primary colors, mixed them, and then mix them even more to get a limited palette decision here. Here's another scene. It was a cloudy day. Where there was like a lot of greenery, but it ended up, I wanted a complementary color scheme. And I ended up with all these muted shades. Okay. All right. So that's that. Okay. Back to business. Oh, we're almost out of time. All right. Well, all right. So let's go back. All right. So back to business over here. I'm going to set that back a little bit more. All right. So let's take a look. All right. So I have some bright I want to take a look at. All right. And actually, what I might do is look at this on my phone. This picture. Some colors up. Oh, somebody else is calling. All right. Okay. Photos. Okay. All right. Mixing. So I am going to do some soft mixing like that. I don't want it to get too chalky right away. I'm just going to put background on that sign. Start with that. All right. Patio light. This is going to help me from getting, help prevent me from getting chalky right away. If I use a soft mixing weight. Oh, need more colors? I got here. And that over here, and I'll mix it with a little bit of alizarin crimson, but just a tiny bit, a teeny tiny bit, because I know that alizarin crimson has a lot of pigment in it. Then I do need some alizarin crimson here that has just a tiny bit of white in it. Now, alizarin crimson is very transparent. That's a nice color. Tinting. So I'm going to need a little bit of that. In my sign. Then, see now, it also has some violet. So add a little bit of cobalt blue to it to get a violet shade. That's in that, in this sign right here. That. There's even some green. All right, so let's take a little bit of that. But it's kind of a dull green. So let's take that. A little bit more. Dull green. Could be a little bit lighter. Cool. Oh, you know what? I need to go around and take some pictures of where you guys are at. Mm-hmm. Too dark, right? Yeah. Or you can mix other colors in with it. Like you have. Okay. Yeah. So like you see some So I think we can get that. I think it's because it's a little bit bright of the yellow. See, this is a little bit. Oh, and then it gets a little bit more yellow, but a little bit more. It has a little bit more. See, now that's nice because it's a compliment. That's it's more. I think it's almost like. Well, oh, actually, darker. It might be I would say, as far as this color, right? So if I take some of that, and this is better, tucking more in as usual. let's make that. Overall, like, what that does for you is it gives you that glow. That yellow looks really cool. That right there looks cool. But so now, if you so some of that glow on the water, right? Towards the horizon. So you can start by putting in like that, but then you can get, you can get some of this really like in there too. But you know, it's not stark white. Okay, so let's say I want it a little bit lighter, then I can, add that accent. But then, we have that box underneath it. And I think that helps. Color scheme this works. So yes, I would say this, and just know that it's a combination of the colors that you already have. Yes, I have the blue person, the yellow, and the white, and the country. So let's. All right. Where do you really get to use them? Wait, I get very far. So that we're still going with this, okay?
Yeah.
Make sure that, that is like similar. Okay? They're not gonna be.
Yes.
Yep. Look at what we have here. Wow. Nice. Yeah, it's getting a glow. The glow is there. Cool. That's it. Um, blue green, right? This is the blue green and the red orange, yeah. I think it's leaning, a little bit redder than, okay. And I love this, I mean, that, you have a lot going on in there. So I think you could use, I think you could use full color with this, so colorful. But I like your idea of using the triad here. Maybe it's more just so what's the star? The star is the red one, right? So the star is the red one. I don't have to say it's this color. The red and orange and green. So you could, I would say it's this. These are your, this would be your star. These are your two stars. I definitely think so because here, I mean, you do have like some of this is grayed out, which is fine. But this is where it's at. Because this door is your focal point, and that is so that it's bright. But this, that blue green is like a perfect complement. And actually, if I would say, like, say this would be, let's just say this looks like Rosie, this would illustration purpose. Garcia is dark orange, so you're still in the red orange. So it's still pretty much, even though a variation, it's still a variation of the red orange being the complementary. Two, well, the yellow we just, you just get that because you have the, in the red orange is the yellow, so it's still harmonious, right? So let's just say you pick cadmium yellow. Actually, this looks like you have yellow that reflects green. I would say maybe use add yellow light. Just with the red to make it warm, right? The colors is not time. You also have some light. As far as the green is concerned, I don't know where it is green. Now, I have 56. Only blues when I was in school, that's all. Yes, that's what we got, we all know. I don't think you have to be, it's probably flexible. Say when you're scared, overall skin, an orange that reflects red with a blue green, I think that's going to be like the strength of your palette. Today I noticed that what I would say is at this point, you can paint on what's already there. So that was a couple more of that background. Your colors mix it in. It's really quick. Just as just a quick color. Just to visually see. I think that's really yeah, about campus. Yeah, it's what I would like to see you do though is I would like to see you be bolder and walk. But where you really want the colors to and I can cross this bridge. That's amazing. Okay, so for you, that's what I want. Right. medium. If you mix it in medium and you need to draw it like a jar, you can take it with you if you want to bring it back. Um, I have it home. Okay. And I was gonna clean.